In this lesson, we'll learn how we can incorporate glowing effects into our Softimage scenes. Okay, so for this particular example, what I'd like to do is start to introduce some glowing effects into some of these materials. So really what I'd like to do is have these thrusters back here have kind of this nice bright kind of glowing effect here. So in Softimage, we can apply a glow to an actual object. So in order to actually accomplish that, we first need to have some kind of a piece of geometry in here to actually apply that glow to. So just to keep things nice and simple, let's start with maybe something like a surface sphere. It can really be anything that we want, but just to keep things simple, I'll just use a sphere for this. Now I'll take this sphere and scale this down and try to sort of tuck this inside of this thruster. Again, really doesn't have to be precise, just as long as it's pretty close. So there we go. Now, as far as the actual material that we use for this, we can use pretty much anything that we want. That really won't affect the glow very substantially. So what I might do is come in and just go to Get Material, and again, use a constant for something like this. So if I render that out, a constant really does not obey any sort of lighting. It doesn't obey any shadows, no highlights. It's a completely flat, completely constant shaded material. So for this, I might come in and maybe just give this a quick bright red color. Again, really doesn't matter exactly what color you use, because this color, chances are, is going to be completely obscured by the glow anyway. So now, with this object selected, let's go to Get Property, and really it's going to be important to note that the actual property that we're looking for, the glow, is not actually located in this particular model menu. So if we jump over to Render, and now in this menu go to Get Property, we actually have a few new options. The one that I'm looking for in this case is Glow. So I can drop that onto my object, and now you can see we get this really nice beginning of a glow here. Now what I'd like to do is take this glow and make it sort of a little bit more of a red color. So I can switch this to something like an HSV, dial my color up or down, start to find some different colors in here. In my case, I'll start with kind of a light red. So maybe something sort of like that. So that starts to give us a little bit of a glow, but it's really not all that intense. In my case, you can see that glow almost actually starts to become a little bit more of a kind of a dull color. So to fix this, we can now start to take this intensity and begin dialing this up. So in my case, I'll dial this up to something closer to 2. There we go, and now we start to get something quite a bit more substantial. I might even take this up a little bit higher, somewhere between 3 and 4. And as we start to dial this up higher, we should now start to get this really, really nice kind of white hot core to our glow, and that's really what I'm looking for. Now, another thing that we can start to do is adjust things like the size and the noise. So with the size of our glow, this should start to, really as the name suggests, make our glow spread out either much wider or in a much smaller, more contained area. So as I start to bring this down, you can see where my glow is really, really contained just in this very small area. But I can also start to bring this out if I want a much more substantial, much more bright glow. Now below this we have our minimum level. Now this starts to kind of become a little bit more apparent. If you look very, very closely, we can actually start to see sort of the edge of this glow. And as I start to bring this up, that edge should start to become much more apparent. So essentially this minimum value, or this minimum level, is controlling where that edge of our glow happens and how subtly that transition from full opacity into this nice glow starts to occur. So with a higher level, we start to get a much more substantial edge here. So what I can do is bring this down to an even lower value. The default value was 0.01, but if I bring that down even more, we can now make sure that that edge really doesn't occur anymore. And I can take that edge, or rather the size, maybe start to make that a little bit more substantial in here as well. Now we also have this noise. So the noise is really just kind of like the name suggests, starts to add a little bit more of a irregular noise pattern in here. Now with my glow intensity as bright as it is, it's probably going to be pretty hard to see that actual noise pattern. So it might start to dial this down. And we can start to introduce maybe a little bit higher scale if we need to. Really what I find is that I actually don't like to have that noise in here. So typically, I actually like to take this noise amplitude and bring that all the way down to 0, so that way there is no possibility of having any noise in here at all, and we get this really nice, clean, bright glow. Alright, so in my case, again, I'll maybe bring that intensity down to something like 3. That might be a little bit too bright for what I need. Alright, perfect. So now, it's just a matter of, once we have this sphere in place and the glow set up, we can now simply take that sphere, duplicate it, move this over and into place, and in this case we'll do Control-Alt-D to make sure we duplicate without any options, and duplicate that over there, because otherwise if we were to simply press Control-D, we may actually wind up with our sphere kind of down here, remembering that initial movement that it went through. So let's actually make sure that we don't have 2 spheres there. Okay. So that looks good. And now if I were to pull my camera back and render this out, we should have our 3 spheres here, and all 3 of them have this really, really nice bright glowing effect. Now, if at any point in time, if we want to get back to the actual glow itself, we can just simply select our sphere, go into the Selection Explorer, and here's our glow. Now, something very, very important to keep in mind is that all 3 of these spheres each have their own unique glow effect. So if I were to select one of these, come in and try to change the glow color, it should only affect the glow of that one sphere. So something very, very important to keep in mind is that if we do want to come in and make adjustments to these spheres, you want to come in and make sure you grab all 3 of them at the same time. And now, if you go into the Selection Explorer, it should identify that the glow is something that is shared between all 3 of these objects. So now I can come in, and you can see now I'm working with multiple glow parameters at the same time. And now if I come in and adjust something like the color, that should filter down into all 3 of these objects. Okay, so that's now going to wrap us up with this texturing section of our training. So at this point now I'm going to pass this over to Delano, who is going to start to take you through the rigging as well as the animation process for this little scene here.